Today we're at the Glass Lady Studio and we're going to talk about mosaics around the house. We've talked about some of the murals I've done in more public type buildings before. You've seen the Mosaic Mania windows, I hope, that the kids have done in the schools. And I'm sure many of you have seen different mosaics that I've done more in like a picture format, such as this one. This is just an abstract random piece using old broken china and some scrap mirror and a clear background on it. But you can also do mosaics in different settings that you may not have thought of, such as a backsplash to a bathroom sink or a kitchen sink. Or in this case, this studio, I wanted a counter over here and was trying to just use the resources that I had. So I have lots of broken glass, of course. And so I started laying this out. I took a straight edge and just randomly drew different shapes. And a few of them have changed as I've gone along just by the way the glass fits down. But what makes this maybe a little bit different than other things you've seen is I'm using not only scrap glass, such as this, these are just all different shades of blue, but I'm also taking larger sheets of the same color of glass and cutting them down. Still staying in that blue and green with a little pop of orange and red probably in the end I'll have in here. But for the most part it'll be just different shades of blue and green glass. To start, I just went over to my scrap bins and I'll randomly cut these down, probably a little larger than you normally would for a mosaic. You're not trying to see any pattern in here. I'm not doing a flower, for instance. However, you could certainly do something like that. But in this case, it's just very random. And simple mosaic methods of just gluing first. You always work in small sections because the glue does dry relatively quickly. And I like the look of it being kind of all mixed up with the different shades in it for some of these shapes. Now the advantage that I have over, say, the kids in the schools is that I can take my nipper and manipulate these shapes if need be. So I can get them a little bit closer. Especially for a countertop or a desk or anything like that, you would want to make sure they're nice and close together. I have a desk at work that I created, and I actually put a bar coating over that. You've maybe seen that in some of the restaurants, that real thick resin coating, and that makes it one solid smooth surface then to write on. And it's pretty easy to use. You can pick it up at any of the local home improvement type stores around town. They all carry it. It comes in a 2-part epoxy form, and you mix it up and pour it out, and it takes about 24 to 48 hours to set up. But that would be the last step after I have glued everything down and grouted it. You want to make sure and grout these. So that's one way I'll be finishing off this piece. The other way is, as I mentioned, I like the fact that you can take a larger piece of glass and cut it down and have that more solid effect. So I've kind of been mixing them up a little bit. So I've already traced this orange. And I'm going to start by just cutting it in one solid piece out. When you cut, especially on this glass, I would want to stay on the inside of this black line. Otherwise, I'll have to do one of two things. When I glue it down, I have to make sure that that black line is up, so when I grout it, it washes away. Or I could simply make sure and wash it. But don't forget to do that step, otherwise that black line, if it gets under the glass with the glue, it'll always be there. Because it is a mosaic, I don't really have to worry about this fitting exact like I would as we've done in the past with some of our stained glass panels that we've done. Very random. So countertops would be an option. Backsplashes are always a great option. Making a picture for either to hang in the window or on the wall. You can make a mosaic on wood and hang it on a wall. I'm now just randomly cutting this in different pieces. My trick, though, is to kind of keep them in the order that I cut them. Otherwise, you have a giant puzzle to try to figure out in a few minutes. So for time's sake, I'm just going to set this aside and I'll start laying some of these out. I got to think about which one I did here. You glue them down just like you would the others with your weld bond and fill it in. Some other options around the home, I have done shower stalls before. You can do the whole shower stall as is, or you can tile halfway up and then do the other half with the mosaic, which is what I actually did. That gets to be a very large project when you start using little tiny pieces of glass, of course. So think that one through before you start. I think it took me about 3 or 4 months to complete the one I did. But once you start doing these and you just start thinking about different items you can do, you can really get creative with it. Abstract patterns are always really great. My desk at work, I did with my kids. It was a great weekend project to do. If I were to do it again, I would love to maybe make a design because I did it very randomly. End tables and coffee tables always work really great. Again, those work better just for cleaning and maintenance. If you do them and have either put that bar coat, that thick resin coat over it, or get a piece of tempered glass cut. Most of the glass shops in town can order those in for you in the exact size you need. And then that's one smooth surface to clean. It isn't so much that you can't use it if it's bumpy and uneven, but if you're doing anything like writing on it, that becomes kind of a challenge. So you want to think about the usability of some of those projects. I've also done lots of mirrors. And then if you move outside, you can do things like house numbers and garden stones and things like that. So lots and lots of uses for mosaics around the home. The other thing I have done here is I have had some hole shapes such as a circle or a rectangle. Those are always kind of fun to throw in for just the recognizable, people recognize what that is, of course. Abstracts can be a hard thing for some to do and see. They're definitely harder for me to do. I work better if I know the exact object I'm making as opposed to a random object. But I'm getting better as the years go by. So keep challenging yourself. Mosaics are a lot like putting together a puzzle. One of the things that I talk about when I have younger students, and actually older students, to be honest with you, is that you don't always have to challenge yourself with a really, really hard pattern. You can challenge yourself by taking something really simple and easy, such as this, and making it hard by trying to get these pieces as tight and as close together as you want. There's a misconception that when you do mosaics, you would want to leave your pieces far apart so that there's space, so that grout can work its way down in there. The grout works its way in. If anything, it makes everything look visually a lot further apart. So you have a much more impactful pop of color if you have them nice and close together. Something like a countertop, you could do in place like this, or you could do it off-site in another location and then move it on. If you do that, you want to make sure that you've used thick enough wood, though, 1/2 inch to 3/4 inch. So if you have any questions on how to add mosaics to your home, you can give us a call at the Glass Lady Studio.